Hi there,
Hello,
I'm Andrew,
and I'm Larissa.
and welcome back to another episode of Get Started Investing. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the exciting world of credit.
How to build it up, what can break it down, and why we need it.
So, to begin, let's start with the most basic of parts of credit. There are two different types of scores. You have your Vantage score, which is a relatively new form of credit. Uh, And you have your FICO score. Now, most people are familiar with FICO. It's been around since 1989, and it is the primary scoring method for things like student loans, mortgages, and credit cards.
Oh, and so what's the Vantage for?
Advantage is a more short-term loan calculation. So when you're going for those more short-term loans, something that's not a revolving source of credit. So if you need a personal loan, they'd look at a Vantage score.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. And so then, I'm sure everyone's heard about these. On my Credit Karma, it says my TransUnion score and my Equifax score. Experian, what are those and how do they relate to the Vantage and FICO scores?
So primarily TransUnion and Equifax uses Vantage scores nowadays. Those are two different credit bureaus. The third credit bureau is Equifax, who primarily uses FICO.
Oh, okay.
So these are just three different agencies that all banks and financial institutions report to uh, as a collection of user data so we can have the credit system. So that's just a little bit about what credit is in as a financial instrument. But let's talk a little bit about how someone who's brand new to credit would be able to build some.
So maybe some of you who have never had credit before have tried to apply for credit cards or loans or other things and got declined, and you're thinking, why is that? I've never even had anything. I never missed a payment or anything. How come I can't do this? How come they won't even let me try? Well, there are ways. So one way, the way I started to build my credit was my mother added me on as an authorized user to one of her credit cards. So when someone adds you on as an authorized user, that now appears on your credit score. You have that account on there, whatever open credit's there, whatever debt, it's all there and part of your score. It's something for the banks to look at and kind of judge your worthiness on for a loan.
And so, as an authorized user, you're also authorized to use the card.
Yeah,
Now,
if the person gives you the card. My mom didn't.
another method, and the one I actually got started with, was a student credit card. When I originally got started, I was able to use a student credit card with, s- you know, I can't remember the name of the bank, but it's a kind of a small regional one from back in Georgia. Uh, it essentially is a very low limit credit card, no more than $500. They give them to students all the time because typically, when you're becoming a student, you're also taking out student loans. And that by default creates a credit score for you. Not in the best way. Um, Several of my friends tried a method where they would take out a small personal loan of $500 to $1,000 and would either pay it back immediately or within a few months, and that creates a little bit of a credit history for them. And then the final way, and this is probably the most familiar for most people, would be a secured credit card.
That one I actually have never heard of before.
So, um, anytime that you have credit, you're getting one of two types. A standard credit card is called unsecured. It is a revolving door of credit, meaning that the bank takes your word that you will pay them back, and the only thing that they really have tied to you is your social security number or your credit score. So the worst thing they can do is ding your credit. Now, a secured line of credit has an asset attached to it. When it comes to these secured credit cards, it's usually a deposit of between $200 to $500. So, if
And
you
so, would you get this like at your local bank? Where do you get
Yep.
these?
You can get this with just about any credit card provider. They will have a secured option if you don't qualify for a standard credit card. So essentially, if you were to default on your credit card, you miss several months of payment, they would close the account. They would take the secured amount, which is the credit limit for the card, subtract any debt, and either send you the remainder, if any, or they would send you a bill if you went over the credit limit.
Oh, okay.
And usually that would be with fees.
So it's kind of like one of those Visa prepaid cards, but a little different.
A little bit, yeah. It's just when you pay after 2 years is the more typical time frame. After 2 years, they'll send you back the $200 to $500, and it will upgrade from a secured credit card to a standard credit card because you've proven a good payment history. So that's getting started, building from scratch. But let's talk about how a credit score actually works.
Yeah, there are some factors on there that count way more than other factors that are much more heavily weighted.
So the most important part, the heaviest weighted section of your credit score, that is your payment history. We cannot stress enough.
Always, always, always make all of your payments on time.
If you can't make your payment, call your credit company, whichever credit type of credit you have. Call them, talk to them, make some kind of arrangement. But you always want to make sure that you're keeping a as perfect as possible payment history.
It's kind of like if you have to call in sick for work. You don't want to miss work. Missing work is bad, but if you no call, no show, you lose your job. If you call in sick, you lose some PTO, maybe get a ding on your evaluation, but life goes on.
So, payment history is 35% of your score. It's over a third of it entirely. The second portion is your credit utilization. This is how much of your credit you are actually using on a regular basis. So, for example, if you have a $1,000 credit card, and that's the only credit that you have, if you use 300, then you have a credit utilization of 30%, which is the maximum that you can take out for a good score. Now, preferred, in order to have a great score or an excellent score, you need to have that below 10% total utilization. Now, the more credit you get, the wider that becomes because it is a total percentage. But they do look at it as a scale. If you've ever heard anyone talk about debt to income ratio or outstanding credit balance, that's what they're referring to as your credit utilization ratio.
And that is why it's really important to not get into debt if you don't have it, and if you do, to really focus on paying it off because it can close a lot of doors.
And it's 30% of your credit score. So between your credit utilization and your payment history, that's 65% of your score.
Yep, that's over half. That's what really counts.
And it's just shy of 2/3.
Yeah.
So between those two, if you're able to make payments and keep the balance low, now there is a difference between putting something on a credit card and then immediately paying it off, because the credit bureaus do have windows between 15 to 45 days on how often they're checking your credit. So if it's a very short-term thing, like under 2 weeks,
Yeah,
go ahead.
it's no big deal. Your credit's going to be great. You can charge expenses on there, pay it off when you get your paycheck, and if your credit card has cash rewards, miles, etc., you can reap those benefits. That's a great strategy.
So the next portion is age of accounts. Now, this is something that really gets a lot of people. Every time,
Yeah, including us.
every time you open a new form of credit, it takes the average of your total credit and essentially cuts it in half.
Yeah.
So imagine you open a credit card and you have it for 10 years, and then you decide that you want a new credit card. So you open a new credit card. Now your average history goes from 10 years down to 5. You're going to see a moderate amount of points drop from your credit score because of this. The age of your accounts accounts for 15% of your score, and honestly, it's kind of that double whammy because it's a catch-22. They want you to have long-standing accounts, but if you're just getting started, this is one that you're always going to score low on until time
You
passes.
just have to wait. When you're in your late 30s and 40s, that'll probably go up.
So for this, what I would recommend is if you're getting started, find the number of credit type products that you want, because the amount of credit, the credit mix, also that's the point we're going to be talking about next.
Oh yeah, diversifying
Uh,
helps too.
The number of accounts you have is important. So
Yeah, having more accounts is a higher score. Excellent scores are what, like 20, 30 accounts?
it's
I forget.
21 plus.
21 or more for an excellent score.
So, and that's 10% of your total score. So, if your goal is to one day have an excellent in those two categories combined, what you'll need to do is very early in your credit journey, open up as many credit card accounts as you can.
Yeah, like every 6 months or so, apply for a new one.
And then once you have the 21 different credit products, instead of opening a new one, if you have the existing, ask for ask for an additional increase to your credit lines. So if you have a credit card that has $10,000 credit limit on it, but you find that you need more, call your bank and ask them, hey, can I get my credit limit increase on this $10,000 card up to a 20?
Oh, and another thing about credit limit increases, a lot of times when you do open new credit cards, if you make on-time payments for like a solid year, they will automatically increase your credit limit just for you doing such a great job.
If they don't do that, sometimes they'll also drop your rate.
Yeah,
It's
that too.
completely possible to go from a 24.99 down to a 18.99 down to a 16.99. I've seen it happen. The final section of your credit score is inquiries. Now, anytime that you try to shop around, you try to get a credit card, take out a loan, try to get a house, try to get your credit score increased, try to do anything having to do with your credit, it's going to ding you.
Yep, it's called a hard inquiry. This is any time they have to look at your credit. Now, something like checking Credit Karma or getting your free credit score, that's nothing. That's just a soft pull. It doesn't show up. But even something like getting a new cell phone and you're going to finance it, they're going to pull your credit and you're going to get a hard inquiry for that.
Now, typically you only want about 1 to 2 credit inquiries on your account at any given time.
And they take 2 years to fall off of your report.
In total, it takes 1 year for them to go from being a active hard inquiry to a passive hard inquiry. So they will still see it, but it will no longer be affecting your score.
Yeah, you'll get your points back.
So with the different types of inquiries, I do want to mention it's very important. The FTC and the laws that we have regarding credit do have a little trick that may be of use to you. If you are trying to find a mortgage, or if you're trying to find a car loan, or trying to shop around for a good new credit card, you can go and talk to as many companies as you want, do as many applications as you want, and apply for as many of these products as you want. Now, what's going to it all has to be the same.
Yeah,
Like,
the same type of thing. You can't apply for mortgages, car loans, new credit cards all at once.
all at the same time. That's not, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah.
But if you're shopping for a credit card, you can ask 18 different credit card companies, can I get a credit card with you? And at the end of the month, after 30 days, that's very important. It's a 30-day period that you get to do this because they want to encourage you to rate shop. After 30 days, all of that counts as a single hard inquiry. Now, the same is done for mortgages and the same is done for car loans. Most credit services will allow you to only get a single hard inquiry if you're just shopping around.
Yeah, so that's very helpful. They don't want to block you from being able to rate shop because that's just not going to be good for anybody.
So if you are going to use your hard inquiry and ask for some credit limit increases, do it for all of your credit cards all in the same month.
Because then it only counts as one.
Yeah, I mean, if you're already going to take the hit for one, might as well take them for them all. Now, we do have some surprising things that we were doing a little bit of research while we were preparing for this episode. We found some things that doesn't really sound like it should, but these things do totally affect your credit. The first one that piqued my interest was parking tickets. Unpaid parking tickets can go into collections and can affect your credit score.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense when you think about it. Anytime you don't pay something on time, anytime you don't pay a debt, that's collections and that's bad. Remember, number one thing, make all your payments on time. Don't miss them, no matter what they are.
The second surprising thing, and this one is kind of backwards, because you would think by doing this you would actually be doing something good on your credit, but paying off a loan or closing a credit card.
Oh yeah, like actually we just paid off your car loan not too long ago and we took a 15-point loss to our credit score for doing that.
Yep. Anytime that you have anytime that you're closing an account, well, it takes away from your credit age.
Yep, and your
Number of accounts.
Yep.
And while it does drop your credit utilization, it really it's not worth it at that point because it was such a long-standing debt.
Yeah.
If we had paid it off slowly and let it just finish its normal route, then at that point we probably would have only lost like 2 or 3 points.
Yeah, but we would have ended up paying all this money in interest.
Yeah, so I mean, double-edged sword. But yeah, no. If you take out a personal loan, if you take out an auto loan, any non-reoccurring forms of debt.
Yeah, like one of the debt consolidation loans. If
Yep.
you do that.
Then any kind of loan product that doesn't recycle or recur, you will lose points when it closes. Applying for insurance is another way. Some insurance companies, for whatever reason, will actually run your credit, and that can give you a hard
that's
inquiry.
Shocking! I didn't know that.
Another one. Now, this one kind of makes sense, but at the same time, like you don't draw that normal conclusion. Is bank overdraft fees. Too many bank overdraft fees can get you sent to collections, And just like the parking tickets, things in collections have negative aspects on your credit.
Well, I guess it has to be quite a few fees.
I mean, truth be told, it could just take one.
Because, I don't know, I've overdrafted before, but nothing ever happened to my credit. So I don't know.
The fifth and final thing, and this one just blew my mind because, like, in what way is credit ever associated with this? But opening up a CD, a certificate of deposit with a bank. Now, a CD is just a very basic, simple interest deposit. It's basically a savings account with a little bit better interest. Um, but beyond that, opening up a CD, some banks will actually check your credit and will give you another inquiry, which is just what? I'm dropping off $1,000, hoping to get like $100 in interest after a year, and you want to check my credit for that? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
Okay.
But it is what it is.
So we went over things that can affect credit, how.
Oh, there is one more surprising thing. Whenever you apply to rent an apartment, that's a hard inquiry.
That is true. A lot of landlords specifically want to run your credit report to find out whether or not you would make a good tenant, and that can really affect your credit.
And whether or not you get the apartment, depending on what the score is.
Now, again, a benefit here is if you're apartment shopping, you have the opportunity. You have 30 days to get that credit report run as many times as you want, so you can find the best deal. So, I mean, it hurts the first time, but after that,
After that, you can shop around and make sure you take advantage of that window.
Now, a lot of these scores, they'll bounce back and forth, like inquiries, and those are really kind of low-hanging fruit. It's a couple of points here and there, and it comes back rather quickly, but it can build up.
Yeah, if you get a bunch of them, then it can be a problem. They may only be 10 points each, but if you've got 6 of them, that's 60 points.
Yeah. So let's talk about how to fix credit. In our previous video, when we were talking about debt, we were talking a lot about consumer debt, and credit is very often used primarily for consumer debt. So I would say let's be sure to refer back to the previous episode to get up to date on the snowball method, the avalanche method, and our favorite method, which
Velocity banking!
is, or as I like to call it, the chunking method.
Yeah.
I love the way it sounds.
It sounds nice that way.
It's a satisfying word, chunk. I love the thumping.
Take a chunk out of debt. That is
Yep.
satisfying.
There is actually another way. It does require a little bit higher of a credit score, but there is debt consolidation loans. A lot of times you'll see these advertised everywhere as a means to centralize all of your debt payments into one location. Now, debt consolidation loans are a double-edged sword. In some ways, yes, it's fantastic. You're going to save on interest. You get the ease of paying one bill a month instead of 5, 6, 7.
Less to think about, for sure.
It's much harder to miss a payment. You got a lower monthly payment. All in all, on the 10, it sounds amazing. But there are a couple of factors you got to keep in mind. Remember, your credit utilization ratio is going to take a massive hit because you're opening up a brand new loan and then you're using that loan. So your credit utilization is about the same. And if you're not careful with your spending, then you're going to wind up putting yourself back into further debt.
Yeah, it could be really easy if you do that lower monthly payment to rack up more debt. Oh, I can afford to pay a little more on this credit card if it runs up again. So you could end up, if you're not careful, if you don't change your spending habits, it could be way worse than before. So you really got to watch that.
And then you also have to make sure that you're not closing a ton of accounts when you do so,
Oh, yeah.
because if you have 5 or so accounts that all close the moment that you do that, that will also decrease the.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, that's going to hurt so much. Do not close those credit cards when you pay them off.
Yeah. Closing a credit card is actually one of the worst things you can do to your credit. Just leave it open. Like,
Keep it for all eternity and make sure you just put a little something on it, like movie tickets, and pay it off right away, because sometimes they will just automatically close due to inactivity if you do nothing for like a year or two.
yeah, just rotate your cards. Like one every month, just
One
rotate
little
it.
thing, yeah.
But another aspect to the debt consolidation loans, um, kind of my least favorite is once you finally got through and paid all of that debt consolidation loan off, the account then closes and you get slapped at the tail end with losing points, which the whole point of this in the first place was to increase your credit score by taking away all that nasty credit card debt and making it easier to pay off. So,
Oh, so here's the other thing. Like, the payment went down, the interest is lower, but is it going to take me longer to pay off my debt doing this?
uh, if you only stick to the minimum payment, yes. But if you take the same amount of money that you're paying to the credit cards and pay it to the credit loan, to the loan, then honestly, you're going to wind up paying off the loan faster.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, again, don't just do minimum payments.
No, don't do minimum payments. That's how they get you.
They want you to do that because they get the most interest that way. Don't give it to them.
What we would recommend instead is there's another method that you can use, which it has a very similar principle to the debt consolidation loan, but it's a bit more permanent because it's a revolving form of credit, and that would be balance transfers onto 0% APR credit cards.
And again, this is one you need a better credit score to be able to do. But if you can, this method is fantastic.
So what you would wind up doing is when you go to open a new credit card, often they'll have an introductory for between 6, 12, or 18 months, 0% down APR for 6, 12, 18 on any balance transfer to that card. Now, there's a few little odds and ends. Most balance transfers are $100 or 3%, whichever one's higher. So if say you get a brand new credit card for $10,000, fantastic. It's got the balance transfer option. You decide to take it, and you put $5,000 onto that brand new credit card. Well, when you get your bill, you're going to see $5,000 plus 3%, which, if I'm doing my math correctly, is $150.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So you're going to see $5,150. So not a bad deal, because that $150 was probably going to be your interest payment on the other credit card anyways. And you have 0% APR. You're paying no interest on this, and you can just pay it down really quickly.
Oh, and another thing that happens, if you have like credit cards you haven't been using for a while, if you have unused credit, sometimes you'll get a letter from the credit card company saying you can do a balance transfer with us, no interest for 6 to 12 months and just the fee. So even that old card that you haven't used in a long time could come back to help you.
Believe it or not, you can actually just call and ask. Sometimes if you've had your balance cleared out for over a year, that credit company, they want you to use their card, so they'll be happy to offer it to you as like a one-time promotion. they'll say it's a one-time promotion,
Yeah.
but trust me, you can get it whenever you want, as long as you're in good standing and you know things are going well. There's options there.
Oh yeah.
It's a better option to just do the balance transfers rather than the debt consolidation, because you're opening up a new credit card, which will have a little bit of a ding on your
Yeah.
credit.
You'll get the hard inquiry, but you'll also have another account and just higher overall line of credit, which helps your debt to income ratio.
And it's a revolving form of credit, so it doesn't close.
Yep, you still have it, and so at the end of the day, you're going to have more points.
So now that now what are some ways that we would recommend like actually utilizing credit? Like, why do we need it? I personally, I love the idea of using credit for buying real estate, using credit cards instead of a consumer debt tool. Use it as a renovations tool to buy supplies and to buy, to pay a contractor to come in and do renovations for me.
So essentially, for like taking a short-term loan for like real estate to like get an asset.
Yeah.
That's why.
So rather than using my money, I can put a small down payment on a property, 3.5%, and use the bank's money to buy the house, and then I can use my credit card to renovate the house, and then I can bring in a tenant to pay the mortgage for me. All in all, I'm spending 3.5% of the value of the house before it gets fixed, and I'm getting, all the value that's added after the renovation plus the any profit from the rent. That is, I think, my favorite use of credit.
Oh yeah, and another thing you can use it for, if you have cards that give you rewards like cash back rewards, airline miles, things like that, if you just treat it like it's a debit card and make sure you spend within your means, don't go over, and you're paying it off every 2 weeks, you are getting all of the cash back and all of the miles, but not carrying any of the debt. So at the end of the year, you'll have a bunch of cash back built up, hundreds of dollars. You'll have all these miles. You could fly to see your family for the holidays for free.
And get Christmas presents
Yeah.
for free.
Exactly. So cards like that are fantastic.
Then any other debt tricks, tips, or things that you just think is really cool that you can do with a credit card or something else?
I can't think of any.
Well, I can.
Yeah.
My absolute favorite is the HELOC. It's basically a credit card that you can attach to the value of your house. Now, you do have to have a good credit score for this, but think about being able to use velocity banking instead of having $5,000 in order to tackle debt or say a renovation project. You have instead $25,000.
And for those of you who aren't familiar, HELOC stands for Home Equity Line of Credit.
It's essentially a credit card paid for or secured by your house. Now, we are getting the signal that we are running out of time. So, for today's episode, rather than giving a book recommendation, because honestly, there's not a whole lot of books on credit cards that I honestly haven't even seen one. We're going to instead recommend a YouTube channel for you to go and check out. And one of this YouTuber's specialties is credit cards and credit utilization. So today we're going to recommend Graham Stephan. He's got 1.8 million subscribers at the time of this recording. He is very, very well known for his 20-cent coffees, his Tesla, his real estate, and smashing the like button for the YouTube algorithm.
And make sure you do that for us if you haven't already, and also subscribe, and if you want to be notified whenever we put out a new video, ring that little bell.
As always, it's been an absolute pleasure just sitting down and having a chat with you. I have been Andrew.
And I've been Larissa.
Hope you have a wonderful night.